Good evening again, everybody. Thank you for being here. And this is our 15th show, 15th week. Very excited about this. And this week I promised you I would be in the new studio. And what I realized that there's a lot more production with that. So we'll hopefully have that by next week. First of all, just a reminder for those people who like to quote, etc., that there is a copyright and terms of use notice on the web page here. You can see it up here, the jmccsci.com. And so if you're thinking about using quotes or material from this show, check that out first. Once again, it's listed on their copyright and fair use notice. Okay. I want to I have a topic that I'm going to carry over from last week, and that is I was talking about the difference between human being and AI, for example, but I was talking about the human spirit and something that sets us aside from animals, something called free will, something animals don't have. Animals respond to their environment. And for the most part, men and women do too. Humans, let's just say that to avoid any conflict of interest in those terms. Humans, let's just group them all together, have a free will. But most people don't know that. Most people respond to their environment like an animal. In fact, there's a song, and this is pushed in the news. It's very subtle, but it's in the news media. You know, when you listen to the news, the evening news, the stock market, the jobless rate, the election, it's on and on, all the things you should worry about. And really, pretty much none of it is anything you should worry about because most of it's out of your control. But what they're doing is they're replacing your free will with a bunch of other stuff. Okay, so at any rate, that's what sets man aside. And by the way, we can change our environment, something a star can't do, something a plasma cloud cannot do, something the earth cannot do. It is bound by physical principles, and I'll be getting into that in a minute also. So man has this ability to communicate. Something that animals on a very rudimentary basis do, whales, birds, tortoises. The animal kingdom has methods of communication, but nothing that is complex like man. And for example, the creation of music. Some people say, well, the whales have this singy-song sounds that they make, and it's kind of like music. Yeah, and they're individual. That's interesting. But man has a whole different quantum leap above this, and that is based on your spirit interacting with your body. And so if you haven't figured out how to communicate with your spirit that's associated with your body, I suggest you go by yourself, turn off the phone, turn off the TV, spend some time out in the woods, for example, a very good place, or out in the prophets used to go out in the desert. It's a place you can be pretty much alone, except for the tarantulas and bugs and snakes, etc. But at any rate, today I want to talk about group consciousness, which is a very interesting phenomenon. Here's the situation, and if you want to know what's important for human beings, just look at what the people who run the planet are afraid of. What are they most afraid of? One of the top things they are afraid of is you getting together with other people, number one, figuring it out, and that's where the internet has blown it apart, basically, because now regular people can communicate with hundreds of thousands, millions of people in an instant. And these thoughts can move around, and so they are desperately, through social media, trying to control this. And it's back when the internet was becoming big, the leaders of the world, the people you don't know their names, you never see, were very worried about it. And so somebody came along and said, well, no, the internet is going to be a very good thing for you, the people in power, because it'll allow you to control and manage information and information flow, and you can create, and this is something I've always said, that they create, and this is standard disinformation, they create both sides of the story. They create the information they want you to believe, and then they create the other side, which is total disinformation too, so that they control both sides of the dialogue. And that's what most people don't understand. So when you listen to so-called alternative radio or whatever, most of it is constructed. Most of it isn't constructed to snare you, and then when the big issues come along, they fold like an old suit. And then they're part of the disinformation program. And then the real information never gets to you, the public. And that happens all the time. I won't mention any major social media platforms, but let's put it this way, pretty much all of them. Very few are managed in an open manner. But let's get back to groups of people. What are they most afraid of? Now, internet is interesting because the people are meeting, they're trying to meet boyfriends and girlfriends, partners on internet, you know. But there's something very different than the old-fashioned way where you literally maybe join groups or clubs or whatever. Some people go to bars, pretty bad place to meet people, but people do that. But anyway, you know, a lot of people meet people at college, for example. That's a great place to meet people of your own, you know, kind of academic level. And I always say that college is advanced high school, advanced babysitting, because the parents now have them out of the house. They're often away, whatever, you know, out of sight, out of mind. But they're able to meet people kind of on their own level. Okay, so anyway, getting back to groups. Now, what is the thing the leaders of the world, this invisible cabal that runs things, runs Washington, D.C., runs the Congress, runs the court systems, whatever, what are they most afraid of? And this is what this is what you look at to see the properties of human beings that they really are worried about. And that is groups getting together physically and outside. Those two things. Now, if you get together in a church or in a building or in a community center or whatever, that is blocking the vertical electric field. And now, if you haven't figured this out yet, why am I talking about this on a science show that deals with the electrical nature of the solar system? Well, you are part of that electrical circuit, and your body is an antenna. Your hair is an antenna. And back in the biblical times, remember Samson and Delilah? Samson had these long flowing locks, and how did Delilah cut his power? By cutting his hair. You know, they knew, and this is something too, that long hair is a symbol of power. And it's something that it's you know, I have short hair. I'm not looking to gain power by growing my hair out. But the idea is that your whole body is an electrical antenna, and when you get out into the electrical field, the vertical electric field, which is about 300 volts per meter, is really a lot. It's very high. And the reason it doesn't discharge through you is because of the dielectric in the atmosphere. That prevents the discharge of the vertical electric field, and it maintains it. But 300 volts per meter is a lot. Tesla knew about this, and he didn't know where it came from. That's what my work extended what Tesla did, because I realized, I figured out where the vertical electric field comes from, something that standard science cannot tell you. Where does the magnetic field of Jupiter come from? I've talked about that before. I talked about something called sundowner syndrome, and that is with people with epilepsy. What happens is at sundown, the people with epilepsy and other nervous system disorders get relief for just that period of time, and there's something electrical going on. People have tried to duplicate that in a laboratory, but your body is very much electrical. Excuse me. But anyway, When you communicate with other people, now there's some people that, and here's an example. I've used this before. That when you're going about your business, you're doing your work, you're concentrating on something. You get up and you walk around the corner, and all of a sudden you're face to face with a young lady or something, and this is some young kid that's and the situation is a lot of times you meet people when it's very unexpected. But so this young couple, all of a sudden it's face to face, and it's like they look at each other, and it's like the whole universe goes away. And if you've never had that experience, well, I feel sorry for you. But the point is that it's not just a visual physical attraction. That's part of it. It's kind of like that shock. But it's also the electrical. You're an antenna. They are an antenna. Your spirits are connecting. That's what I'm telling you. And so it's and once again, this is what they don't want people to know. And so young people who are out on the internet trying to find dates, this part of meeting someone is completely lost. You're not going to have this on the internet. So stop using social media or these chat pages or whatever to meet people. Stop it. You're not going to have success there. You're going to just run into problems. And so anyway, the point is, I'm not trying to teach people how to socialize or whatever, but the point is that the human body is electrical, very electrical, and part of that is the spirit that lives in everybody's body. But what happens now, here's the point. Listen to last week's show, I go into a lot of this detail, but what happens when you get groups of people together? Now, interesting that people have said, for example, Christ said, when 3 of you are together in my name, then I am there with you. Well, why did he say that? Why not 2 or just you yourself? Because of what I'm telling you. And other people have talked about this too. If you go to the Buddhist or the Hindu or any of the other religions, they also talk about this, about the group collective, it's like, what would you call it? Effect, let's just call it that. And once again, since science cannot put a meter on this and measure it, they don't believe it exists. The Native Americans talk about the Earth having, and they understood also that the Earth itself has a resonance frequency, and when you go out in the morning and you put your feet in the dew that fell overnight in the grass, what you're doing, and you're barefoot, you step on the ground, what you're doing is you're connecting that vertical electric field and enhancing it. When the shamans of Peru or from other, from in the Hindu Kush or wherever, go up into the mountains, they go up barefoot. And you see these people, I've seen them. They're barefoot and you're going, wow, these people they have like the sole on your shoe, they have that on their foot because they walk around barefoot and they have all their lives. But they'll walk up into the mountains and they connect, of course their feet are touching ground, but they're very much elevated in terms of the electric field, the vertical electric field. And as I said, the vertical electric field is part of the overall solar system electric field that's caused by the fusion on the sun. So I'm not going to go into that right now. It's in my books, but the point I want to make right now is the collective connection between groups of people. And I'm going to give a little example here, and I'm not going to use names or dates or places. But there was an incident that happened in the last about 20 years ago, I believe, just to give an idea. No, maybe more like 25, I don't know, something like that. But anyway, there was a group of people that had a large following. And large meaning about 30,000 people. And they were, I don't know what you would call them, a mind think type of thing. But anyway, there were some events that caused them all to to come together. And this was, I know because I have inroads into the intelligence agencies. And when this happened, the intelligence agencies went crazy. Internally, they didn't know what to do. And so anyway, I'm not going to go into all of the details what happened after that, but they broke it up. And anytime you see groups of people trying to go off on their own outside, now this is one of the keys also, because in a building, like I say, you're not going to be connecting into the vertical electric field, and that's what it's like what allows almost like a battery that's allowing these spirits to connect. And so, like I say, you could believe me or not believe me. Maybe you're a scientist and you go, oh, this is goofy. But what you look at, here's the proof that's in the pudding, is that what is the thing, one of the number one things that people in charge, people that operate above the levels of government that run the world, what are they most afraid of? And this is one of them. This is one of them. That groups of people get together outside of like mind and concentrate on a particular topic. That's what they're afraid of. They don't mind you getting together in a church or in the community hall or whatever. They don't mind that because they know you're not going to connect together. It's when you're outside. So once again, you'll find groups of people in third world countries mainly that are going up to the mountains, and you might, in terms of what most people would understand, you might say it's prayer, but it's a connection with the universe. Now, I'll just tell you a little bit about my past and why am I an expert in talking about this. Well, first of all, I understand about the vertical electric field. I understand how to connect into it. I understand that I have a spirit that's part of my body and part of my being, and it makes me who I am different than you. You know, look at the apes in the jungle, for example. They say, oh, man evolved from the ape. Well, they all respond to their environment in the same way, and people don't. People are the one creature that we know about that has the ability to change his environment. So we can go into space, we can build a spacecraft, a space station where we can go in and duplicate as much as possible Earth's environment where people can exist. We can build automobiles, we can mine minerals. All of these things animals don't do. It's because man has intelligence that's different than just animal intelligence. Animal intelligence is responding to your environment. And so, like I say, stars don't do this, planets don't do this, moons, asteroids, they don't do it, whales don't do it. There's something very special about man. So anyway, this concentrated group of people outside by themselves, concentrating on a particular topic, is what the leaders of the world are deathly afraid of, that you will find out and utilize. Learn how to use this. Now, I was going to talk about experiences I've had in this same realm, and I'll give a few examples because I've been outside and experienced the vertical electric field and the ability to connect into it and what it feels like. So do this sometime. If you can, go out and stand in the dew in the morning with your bare feet and you can feel it on your head. You feel the connection. And as soon as you walk outside and walk into the dew, you can feel it. And so maybe the first time you try this, you won't feel anything. You go, I don't feel anything. But start feeling this, and then also begin to communicate with your spirit. I talked about this last week, a couple simple things, and then you progress from there. And nobody's going to teach you this. This is not something that's in a book. The reason I'm talking about it is because personally have experience. And by the way, when I talk about things on this show, or my radio show that I've had for 24 years, It's because I've been there, I've done that myself, I know about it, and it's not because I read it on somebody's web page or read a book somewhere. It's because I'm telling you my experiences. Okay, so just to fill in the blanks here, in 1981, I was a faculty member at Cornell University. I was in the math department. I was publishing papers in astrophysics journals, and the people there, led by Carl Sagan, were very unhappy with me because I was presenting this material, the electrical nature of the solar system, the universe, telling them that the Big Bang never happened, telling them that comets are not dirty snowballs, but they are electrical discharges of the solar capacitor, and defining a whole new realm of physics that they had never seen before. And they didn't want it. They did not want a new regiment of physical. And it turns out that everything I did then was correct. But they worked very diligently to have me fired. Anyway, I'm not going to go into all of the details of that. But after that, I left Ithaca. It was a pretty difficult time for me because I knew I had made all these amazing discoveries that I was actually publishing them in peer-reviewed journals, and they came in and blocked me and made sure that I had no income. They got basically destroyed my income by forcing the math department to let me go. And so anyway, I went to central Canada, and it started out as a canoe trip in about June across central Canada in a river system, these trans-Canadian river systems, and fishing and basically living in the wilderness. And it extended, and when winter set in, I stayed there in the wilderness, and I was bathing in the river until one day it froze. That's how cold it was. But I was literally living outside and living off of fish and basically whatever was in the woods there. And I stayed until about February. And so that's when I finally came back to civilization. But in that time period, I came to some really stark realizations. And when you're alone, and this is alone, I did not have a tent or a house or a roof of any kind. I literally was living outside. And a lot of realization. So when you look at people in history that have gone into the wilderness, the interesting thing in the Bible, they always talk about 40 days and 40 nights. And in the biblical terms, 40 was just like the biggest number they could imagine. So it was not 40. It was just a long period of time. And people have asked me, they said, how long do you have to be in the wilderness to really cleanse out your mind and your spirit, etc.? And I said, there's no set time. You have to just go until you feel like, okay, I'm ready to return to civilization. But I had some real realizations. And one of them is understanding how to connect into the vertical electric field. And literally connecting is like you're connecting an antenna to an electric circuit. Okay, so at any rate, the point is that I've experienced these things myself. It's not, like I say, it's not because I read about it in a book or something. And also, I've had other experiences like this in the tropics. I spent a lot of times in tropics situations, and similarly, and met people who were also able to connect when they were going into the wilderness. So once again, most people are caught up in the rat race of the city or whatever. Their lives are controlled by their environment, by everything that's going on around them, and they never have time. And that's the whole point of modern life. The whole point of modern life is they keep you so busy, you don't have time to think or to connect or to do the things. You're only on this planet for a set period of time. And if you miss it, if you miss the whole point of being here and all you're running around is burning $1 and paying rent and paying your car insurance and whatever, You missed it. You missed the whole point of what you're doing here. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking about that. But very important to understand the group, the ability of groups to get together outside has to be outside, and connecting into that vertical electric field and then communicating. You don't have to be talking, but just concentrating on a certain thing. Okay, now I want to talk about the contradiction of the Big Bang. Now, the whole point of the Big Bang is that it is an atheist construct. And why do I say that? Because it eliminates the need, the obvious need for a designer. And this is not dealing with any religion or religious sect or anything like that. It's just common sense. And so tonight I'm going to play the devil's advocate. And if you talk to people who deal with the Big Bang, they're atheists. The whole idea is that they're trying to get around the fact that there was a designer. But let's play the devil's advocate and let's pretend that the Big Bang happened. It didn't. In no way did it happen. It's just ludicrous. It's always been ludicrous science. The main pillars of the Big Bang, the microwave background radiation, what that is, they're reading the microwave temperature, 3-degree temperature, black body temperature, of a cloud that surrounds our star. That's all it is. If you got outside of that and looked into the universe, you would not see it anymore. You can see this same microwave background radiation surrounding other stars. You can see it. And you can see it that corresponds with the cloud of dust and gas that surrounds it. It's held back by the proton wind that comes off the fusion star. Simple as that. And so then the other thing they talk about is the redshift. Well, the redshift is caused by properties within the stars, the induced electric dipole redshift. It's caused by a star, the excessive protons current in the solar wind and the fusion-based wind, and giving it the induced electric dipole redshift. That's one of my theoretical constructs. It's in my books. Is the cause for the redshift. The bending of light around stars is not due to gravity, not due to general relativity, but due to the same phenomena. And you can show this in a laboratory. Okay, so the Big Bang is just fantasy. And most scientists are starting to realize that. I actually have published papers, peer-reviewed papers, dealing with this topic. Okay, so let's pretend, let's humor them a little bit, humor the Big Bang scientists, and let's pretend that it did happen. Let's pretend. Okay, so the Big Bang happens, and now this is a random explosion. Do you think the protons on the far side of the universe would be the same as the protons here, or the charge, or whatever? In fact, the entire study of physics is to understand the laws of the universe. And if that anything is different over on the other side of the universe than here, then we should incorporate that in our laws. But when you look, no matter where you look, the protons are the same, the electrons are the same. In college, I did an experiment along with many other experiments measuring the charge on the electron. And we got the exact charge that is stated in a textbook or in a data book on the charge on the electron. We got that value in our experiment. Very easily, there's an oil, milk and oil drop experiment. There's various ways to do it. And we did various experiments. We actually built them. We had a machinist on campus who built our experiments for us. And so we were able to measure that property of electrons. Or you could do it for other ions, etc. But the point is, the charge on the electron on this side of the universe, if you did that same experiment on the far side of the universe, as far as we can see, you would get the same charge, not different. So that in itself, the fact that people who study the Big Bang call themselves physicists, what's a physicist? A physicist is a person who studies the laws and tries to understand the laws of the universe. And one of the things that you understand from physics in textbooks or in experiments or in whatever you're doing is that the universe is consistent. There's a design. The design of the protons is the same on the far side of the universe as here. And so by its very nature, let's humor them, let's pretend the Big Bang happened, and everything that you see came from that. There's a design, and if there's a design, there was a designer. Simple as that. So the atheist scientists who want to get around the fact that there's a designer in the universe, game over. The king just toppled over. The checkmate. Sorry, there is a designer. And it's far from our human mind's ability to grasp this, the extent of the universe, the extent of the complexity of the universe. But its design is there. It's simply there. And you cannot deny it. If you deny the design that is there, then you're not a physicist. How could you call yourself a physicist and then say that this is all random, and that you sitting there listening to me happened because of random events? Excuse me. The possibility of that is zero. Anyway, so the whole point is that there is a design in the universe. It's very obvious. And if there's a design, there is a designer. And like I say, don't worry your pretty little head about this, because it's far beyond what man can understand. Okay, changing gears a little bit here. In past few weeks, I've been talking about hurricane manipulation. This has hit mainstream, interestingly enough, with the Hurricane Helene, and then following that, Hurricane Milton coming into Florida. This is a topic that I have pioneered, and let me just go through the history of this. Excuse me. In the mid-1990s, I was introduced to a group of atmospheric scientists at the University of Novosibirsk in Russia, and had a long, very fruitful collaboration with these people. I talked before about the event at Tunguska. These were the scientists from Russia who went out to examine that site, and of course the event was in 1905. But these scientists went back with scientific equipment much later in the 1980s and 90s, and they realized that there was electrical effects there that they did not understand. There were atmospheric events that they did not understand, and this was an electrical discharge that was far too large a discharge to account for what happened there. And so basically the amount of energy at the Tunguska event was about 200 times that of the nuclear bomb at Hiroshima. So this is not some small event. It's not a ice ball coming into the atmosphere and disintegrating, or even some kind of bolide rock asteroid coming into the atmosphere. And it was at ground zero. This explosion happened at ground zero because all the trees at ground zero, very close to the explosion, were blown out and completely scorched. All of the branches just blown off of them, and the trees were scattered in all different directions. So anyway, they were very interested in my work about dealing with the electrical nature of the solar system and where these came from. They had also observed tornadoes on the sun, which they didn't understand. My work explained that. And so this whole plethora of objects. And then we had the Schumacher-Levy 9, 21 pieces of a comet that broke up coming into the region of Jupiter and making these enormous nuclear explosions as still above the atmosphere of Jupiter, not hitting Jupiter yet, but above. And they were water comets, and they turned into sulfur dioxide comets. Sulfur dioxide being a very common element molecule near the region of Jupiter. Okay, so at any rate, there was, like I say, this collaboration. One of the things that we worked on was the cause of hurricanes and typhoons. In the Pacific, they call them typhoons or cyclones, etc. And so, at any rate, the point of what we were doing was to reduce the energy of hurricanes before they made landfall, and to steer them away from harm's way. And so there were two techniques that we developed. This is in the mid-1990s. The realization that hurricanes are not powered by warm water, still this myth that's propagated today on the news media, totally false information. And that shows you too that the news media is totally controlled, especially the weather news media, and especially when it comes to horrific storms, because they don't want you to understand the real cause of this. And like I say, anytime they create a disinformation campaign, they create the opposite side also. So you'll find the social media covered with people talking about HAARP. HAARP is an old technology that's not used anymore. They talk about cloud seeding, or they talk about chemtrails causing hurricanes, or somehow that radio stations are transmitting a frequency that can steer a hurricane. None of these are used at all. But that's the opposing side. That's the controlled opposition, it's called. That's the controlled opposition. And that's what gets the airwaves and not the real story. So the real story is that the hurricanes are controlled by the U.S. military using laser satellites. And what does the laser satellite do? It enhances the electric current, the discharge of the vertical electric field that is actually powering the hurricanes. The idea that warm water somehow evaporates and creates this mega storm is absurd, and all the electricity in it, absurd. So the real cause of a hurricane is that the clouds, typically rolling off of a landmass where they have a short circuit to ground, come over a body of water. And what happens is the air at the surface of the ocean ionizes, and it comes up, spins up a column, and that's what creates the hurricane. And it's the vertical electric field discharge that powers the hurricane and keeps that low pressure cell there. Without this, the hurricane would dissipate in a matter of minutes. Okay, so at any rate, if you understand this, then you would understand that you can control and manipulate hurricanes using laser satellites to enhance the discharge of that electric field. And you can see that as they try and drag these storms. You can see the second eye wall developing and then combining with the first. You can see this on the satellite photos where they're manipulating these hurricanes using laser satellites. The laser satellites began to be launched in around 2000. So Katrina was a controlled storm. The other method that we developed, and by the way, the Russian scientists and myself gave this technology to the U.S. military with the idea that they would use it to move hurricanes away from harm's way. And that's not what the U.S. military did. They took them and they weaponized them. At that point, around the year 2000, the Russian scientists went to the United Nations and they said, look, the United States has developed and weaponized these methods, weapons of mass destruction, literally, and they drew up a treaty to prevent them from being used in warfare or against civilian populations. And the U.S., under George Bush Jr., would not sign that treaty. And so the end result is the military, U.S. military, has the capability of controlling hurricanes. And they still have that. And the other method of controlling a hurricane is, since it is an electrical circuit, what happens, why does a hurricane short out and dissipate when it makes landfall? And the reason is because the electrical circuit, once again, can connect to ground and it shorts out. So you see all this lightning happening as the storm short circuits as it comes onto land. And but anyway, so what they do is they build the storm over the ocean with the laser satellites, and they can drag it, they can maneuver it, and then bring it into an area and then make it more powerful and bring it farther inland than a hurricane would ever go on its own. So who's manipulating Hurricane Helene and Milton? It's the U.S. military. That's who is doing it. And so the technology literally we developed for peaceful purposes, and the U.S. military has taken it and weaponized it. Okay, so the end result is that the manipulation of hurricanes has gotten mainstream media, and once again, like I say, the fake news media, the controlled opposition, is out there in full force. So you will see this all over the internet, people thinking they're giving you hard-hitting news, and they're presenting the controlled opposition. And they're very good at putting people on radio shows or on other people's podcasts, etc. And these people are well-meaning, but they don't understand that they're being had by a group of people who are, literally disinformation agents working through their podcast or radio show. Okay, switching gears again, I'm going to talk about some comets now that have been up in the night sky. One is called A3, and there's a comet designation, but if it's been such a popular comet in the news, etc., that if you just looked up A3, you would find it, where to look, etc. And there's another one that's being called the Halloween comet, and supposedly going to max out around October 28th, so right around the time of Halloween, if it does not break apart, according to the news media, the science news media. But at any rate, A3 has been around for really about a month, maybe a month and a half now. And was observed a little bit earlier than that. I think it was discovered by an individual, and then also an individual comet hunter. And then there's a search, automated search, that is called ATLAS. And that is one of the discoverers of this A3 comet. But what's interesting is I started getting notification. People started emailing me, what about this? Because a lot of my time is spent doing other things these days, so I don't have time to look at all of the... At any given time, there might be 5 or 10 comets visible to the telescope of amateurs. So it's a very active business, and so you never quite know which one is going to turn out to be visible with the naked eye, and that's kind of the key. If the general public can just walk out and look up in the sky and see it, then it gets quite a bit more headline, because more people can see it. And a lot of times these are visible only from the southern hemisphere or something like that, so the people in the northern hemisphere are not going to see it. Majority of people listening to this show. But at any rate, A3 turned out to be an interesting comet. And they started predicting a sunward spike. Now this is where once again, the disinformation gets out there, and NASA claims that comets are dirty snowballs. This is just such a fallacy. And now, mind you, I mean, there's all kinds of proof, scientific proof, including the fact that we probably visited maybe close to 10 comets now. None of them have ice or snow on them. They're not snow at all. They're not sublimating. There's nothing coming off the nucleus. They're hot, dry rocks. Some of them are black, and they have a hydrocarbon baked on the surface. So that's tar in layman's terms. There's no ice or water or snow, and there's nothing coming off the nucleus. And so you think, well, how could this tail be out there attached to the comet? And up above me here, you can see some pictures which were included in, actually one of these, I believe, was this one here, is the cover of my book, Atlantis to Tesla, The Colburn Connection, where 2 comets came in and caused this enormous flare coming off the sun. And Comet A3, likewise, we had auroras around the entire globe this past week, where, I mean, if you lived in Egypt or near the equator someplace, you would have seen auroras. Now, these are very unusual events, and there's no question that it was caused by this comet. this comet interacting with the sun. Well, the comet developed a sunward spike, and in terms of comets, it was not that spectacular, but they were calling it the comet of the century, because so far it's probably the most notable comet in this century, but we're only 24 years along in this century, so a lot could happen in the next 75 years of this century. But the fact that it developed a sunward spike is notable because this is truly part of the electrical discharge. Now, the first comet to actually be seen with a sunward discharge was called Comet Aaron-Rowland. It appeared in the mid-1950s. And so the comet scientists were a bit stunned because at that point they thought comets were dirty snowballs. Actually, back in the 50s, it was called the ice ball comet model. And it was revived by a guy named Fred Whipple. The reason the 1950s date is significant is because in 1950, a man named Emanuel Velikovsky published a book stating that comets had electrical effects, electromagnetic effects, that they had electrical discharges relating to Mars and Jupiter, and that it was that the ancients visibly saw electrical discharges shooting across the outer space between planets and comets, etc. And of course, he was highly, highly ostracized by the scientific community. And so that's the same year that Fred Whipple came along, a young Fred Whipple at that point, and stated that comets were these ice balls. Well, where did he get that idea? It goes all the way back to Kepler, literally to Kepler, where they realized that these comets, because previous to that, Aristotelian philosophy, or physics, as they called it, was taught in all of the higher level universities of the world. So we're going back to the Middle Ages, but Aristotle believed that comets were fire in the atmosphere, some kind of fire phenomenon in the atmosphere. And what Kepler did is he came along with his celestial mechanics and said, no, the comets are out there. They're way out there. They're in orbit around the sun. And that's when the Copernicus system started to solidify. Remember, it took Copernicus' system 300 years to be accepted. It was rejected by the Catholic Church, which was the dominant educational altar or pillar of knowledge, so to speak, through the Middle Ages. And they were still teaching that the Earth was the center of the universe and everything revolved around Earth, the firmament, etc. And these guys came along and said, no, it's, giving the picture that we understand today from modern physics and astronomy, that the Earth revolves around the sun, the Earth spins on its axis, and the firmament is not attached to the Earth, and so at any rate, the belief that comets were ice balls, that they somehow, so this was the concept, and they were talking about Halley's Comet at that time. Halley's Comet was the first one they really realized that had a approximate 70-year orbit, and they went back in time, and then lo and behold, Halley's Comet was visible every 70-year period, going back all the way back to the Chinese. And so they realized these are periodic comets associated with comet groups. Every major planet, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, all have comet groups associated with them because the capture process is related to twin bodies, which would be Jupiter and the Sun, Saturn and the Sun, Uranus and the Sun, etc. And so they have developed families of comets. Okay, so at any rate, the idea of this comet being an ice ball goes back to Kepler in the Middle Ages. So Whipple did not invent this, he simply rejuvenated it with a little bit of modern twist to it. And so, okay, everything was good, because literally here's what happened. Velikovsky came along and said, these comets are doing all these amazing electrical things up in the sky, according to history. Big comets, the planet-sized comets. And so the astronomical community was outraged, but so the news media came to them and says, okay, you're outraged, what's your story? They didn't have one. They did not have a story. So Whipple quick whipped this together, and the scientific community accepted it, and it became established. And the idea went back also to a guy named Oort, O-O-R-T, and he was a European. Early back in the late 1800s, I believe this is when this came into vogue, that they observed comets, and the comets had the closed orbits. In other words, they didn't come from infinity and whip around the sun and go out again. They came from a region very far from the sun. And I'll explain why that is, actually, in the real physical reason. But they noticed this, and they said, well, comets must come from this region. They called it the Oort cloud. Well, the Oort cloud can never be discovered or physically verified by any stretch of the imagination. So there's no way you could build spacecraft or telescopes to prove this. It's just one of those unproven things that's been accepted, and you'll find it in astronomy textbooks. Okay, but the real reason comets have a closed orbit is because when they first come into the solar system, there's tail drag, which slows them down, and it makes them appear to have only a closed orbit, but way out there. Okay, so that's that situation. So up until 1955 or so, life was good. Everybody thought comets were dirty snowballs or ice balls in those days. They hadn't got to the snow or the dirty snowball part yet. But at any rate, all of a sudden, along comes Comet Aaron-Roldan and has this sunward spike. And so an astronomer proclaimed that, oh, maybe it's an optical illusion, that it only appears to be in the sunward direction. And it's really an anti-tail, or a tail that is in the opposite direction of the sun, but only appears to be. And so that explanation was accepted and is still accepted today, although many comets have developed sunward spikes, including Comet A3, that point towards the sun, and we get a broadside view. So what happens if you have a broadside view? Here's the comet, here's the sun over here, and if you have a broadside view, there's no way that this tail could be wrapped back away from the sun. And so it's proof that this thing you're observing, this pencil of light, is actually due to a sunward directed phenomenon. Okay, so at any rate, Comet A3 has been in the skies, but the news media has been rampant, just unbelievably on top of this, as far as promoting the dirty snowball comet model. And what I can't believe is these astronomers, oh my goodness, in 2018, the head of NASA actually resigned over this because the comet satellite, it was called the Philae Lander, part of the Rosetta mission from the European Space Agency. The Philae Lander landed on the nucleus of a comet, something that had never been accomplished before. Lands on the surface of a comet, and there's no ice, there's no snow, there's no water, there's nothing coming off the nucleus. The material on the surface of the comet was hydrocarbons and organic compounds, they said, but primarily nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, and carbon-related molecules. That's all it was, nothing coming off. And I asked the lead scientists on that project what's the closest they saw water to the nucleus. They said about 10 kilometers. 10 kilometers was the closest they saw water to the nucleus. So comets are not dirty snowballs. So why trained, intelligent astronomers are keeping this ruse is beyond me. I mean, it's like the Big Bang. It's a religion. It's a religion, and they got to keep the religion because their funding depends on it. If they were also all of a sudden to come out and say something differently, they would lose their funding, they would lose their positions. So, you know, I don't know. It's the most bizarre thing to see real scientists with training looking at this and not realizing that what they're promoting is completely bogus, fairy tale science. But anyway, I just wanted to present a little bit about A3 because it's in the news, and no, comets are not dirty snowballs. They are the discharge of the solar capacitor, and that's what my books go into. And so now I wanted to give a little bit of information about some of the items on the web page. Okay, so we are now 15 episodes into this series that is going to keep going on for a long time. But if you haven't noticed, there's no commercials. And so what I want to do is let you know how you can get some amazing products in my product lines that will benefit you. I don't take donations, by the way. And so your way of supporting this program and to keep everything moving is to purchase products. And so I'll be showing those now. And by the way, you can get a 30% discount on any of these using the coupon code MASTER, M-A-S-T-E-R. Put it in the coupon code when you're checking out, and so great savings, great products, and then you get something really great and also support this show. So let me just go in order, and I'll point these out on the web page. So here it is, by the way, the web page up there, jmccsci.com. That's short for jmcannyscience.com, but many people misspell that, so I have the short URL to get you to the same page, jmccsci.com. And first of all, the water filters. For 24 years, I've had an amazing water filter company. It's called JMCC Water Filters. The premier product is the MR5 Whole House Water Filter. That stainless steel construction. It comes with also an ultraviolet filter, the best steel package, and currently on sale, but you can get another 30% off with the coupon code MASTER. One of our biggest selling products is the replacement filter element for gravity filters, sometimes commonly called the Berkey. So I sell the replacement filter elements. It's our own design and a highly developed product, much better than anything else you'll get on the open market for these gravity water filters, and very inexpensive relative to what you can purchase on the market. Okay, so those are the water. We also have a make your own water filter where we include a spigot and have instructions on how to make your own very inexpensive water filter. Okay, next are the grow towers. These are amazing. You put these in your house, in your basement, and you can put them out on the deck in the summertime and grow amazing organic non-GMO vegetables or fruits of your very own. And so that's an amazing product. And also the Colombian premium grade coffee. This is an amazing product that I'm promoting. Small farms in Colombia that are importing their product into the United States right now. So Colombia Best Coffee is linked also under the food topic menu, in the menu at the top of the page. Then also the wing generator, JMCC wing generator. We're looking for investors because we're in the process of developing systems that produce hydrogen using the wind. And these can be scaled up to very large sizes, so that's the future of energy. Now also my books, the entire range of 14 published books. Going back to the year 2000, these books are as relevant today as they were when they were written. And then the DVDs, the lecture series, the historically important videos, and my education package. This is for K-12 and university students and their parents. So go there, and once again, 30% discount on the already great prices. And this is how you can support this show. By making a purchase, you get a great product. We get support from you, and keep this show commercial free. And just remember to use the coupon code MASTER, and that's for sales, any sale over $300, you get that 30% discount.